On March 14th, 2025, a man walked into my shop holding a printout of a window sticker like it was a ransom note. He had just come from a Toyota dealership 3 miles down the road. He was not confused. He was not upset. He was defeated. He looked at me and said he thought he had just been taken for $4,000 and he was not even sure how. He was right. And the worst part, the people who took it from him were not even breaking the law. They were using a system so perfectly designed, so deeply buried inside the car buying process, that most buyers hand over the money before they even realize it left their pocket. Today, I am revealing the exact hidden profit structure Toyota dealers use on every single transaction, why the sticker price is almost never the real price, and the specific method that informed buyers use to walk out of a Toyota dealership paying thousands less than everyone else in line. I have been in and around the automotive industry for over 2 decades. I have talked to finance managers, sales managers, and internet directors. I have seen deals fall apart and deals come together, and I can tell you without hesitation that the single most expensive thing a Toyota buyer can walk into a dealership with is ignorance. Not bad credit, not a bad trade. Ignorance. Because every layer of profit a dealer earns from you depends entirely on you not knowing it exists. This video is going to change that. Once you see how the system actually works, you will never look at a Toyota sticker the same way again. Most people assume the deal starts at the window sticker and ends somewhere below it. They assume that negotiating means talking the salesperson down from MSRP to something slightly lower, maybe a few $100s, maybe $1,000, if they push hard enough. That belief is exactly what the dealership is counting on. Because the real deal does not start at MSRP. It starts at a number most buyers never see, never ask for, and never even know exists. Here is what actually happens when a Toyota rolls off the transport truck and onto a dealer lot. The dealer pays an invoice price. That invoice price is lower than MSRP. On a typical Toyota, the gap between invoice and MSRP is somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000 depending on the model. That gap is legitimate front-end profit, and dealers will fight hard to keep every dollar of it. But here is where it gets interesting. Even that invoice price is not what the dealer actually pays in the end. Built into every Toyota dealer invoice is a line item called holdback. Toyota's holdback is approximately 2% of the vehicle's base MSRP. On a $40,000 Camry, that is $800. On a $55,000 Tundra, that is over $1,000. This holdback is collected by Toyota upfront as part of the invoice and then paid back to the dealer quarterly once the vehicles have sold. The dealer is not actually losing that money, they are getting it back. Every time. On every vehicle, regardless of what price they sold it for. So when a Toyota salesperson looks you in the eye and says they are selling the car at invoice and barely making anything, they are technically telling you one version of the truth. The front-end number on the paperwork might look thin, but the check that arrives from Toyota at the end of the quarter tells a very different story. And holdback is only the beginning. Alongside holdback, Toyota charges dealers a separate line item called TDA, Toyota Dealer Advertising. This fee covers the cost of national and regional advertising campaigns, the commercials you see, the sponsorships you hear about, and the promotional materials you flip through at the showroom. TDA is charged by Toyota directly to the dealer and is not refundable. Depending on the region and the vehicle, TDA can run anywhere from several $100s up to over $500 per unit. In some parts of the country, dealers in distributor regions, places like Southeast Toyota or Gulf States Toyota, pay even higher fees because they purchase vehicles through a regional distributor rather than directly from Toyota corporate. That means the baseline cost structure in those states is already inflated before the dealer even touches the pricing. Then, there is the wholesale financial reserve. This is another line item that appears on dealer invoices and is tied to the cost of financing inventory on the dealer's lot. Dealers do not typically own the vehicles sitting on their property outright. They operate on a line of credit called a floor plan, which functions like a revolving credit account. They borrow against it to acquire inventory, and they pay it back as cars are sold. Toyota offers a reserve to help dealers offset this financing cost, and like holdback, it eventually flows back to the dealer's benefit. This means that the true cost of a vehicle to the dealer, the number they actually walk away paying after all credits and refunds, is meaningfully lower than the invoice line they will happily show you across the desk. The man who walked into my shop that day had agreed to pay a price he thought was $1,000 above dealer cost. He was proud of that. He felt like he had negotiated. But when we sat down and pulled up the actual numbers, his so-called negotiated price was closer to $3,000 above what the dealer had truly paid for that car by the time holdback cleared. He had won a small battle in a game he did not know he was playing. And that is where the story would normally end. The buyer pays too much, goes home feeling okay about it, and the cycle repeats. But there is another layer to this system, one that is even more powerful, one that dealers actively hide from the buying public. It is the reason why some buyers walk out of Toyota dealerships paying several $1,000s less than other people who bought the exact same vehicle the same week. It is called a Stairstep incentive program. And once you understand how it works, the entire dealership experience starts to make sense in a way it never did before. Stairs are not literal, but the incentives step up as dealers sell more units. Here is how it operates. Toyota, like most major manufacturers, sets individual sales targets for each dealer on a monthly and quarterly basis. These targets are not public. They are not posted anywhere. They are confidential agreements between Toyota and each individual dealership. When a dealer hits their target, Toyota pays them a volume bonus. That bonus is not a small check. Depending on the size of the dealership and the tier they hit, it can run into tens of thousands of dollars per month and significantly more at the end of a quarter. But here is the critical detail. These bonuses are often structured on a stair-step scale, meaning the bonus amount increases per vehicle as the dealer moves up through the tiers. In some programs, hitting the next tier means the higher bonus applies retroactively to every unit sold during that period, not just the ones sold after the threshold was crossed. What this means in practice is that when a large Toyota dealer is sitting 5 or 6 vehicles away from unlocking the next stair-step tier at the end of a month or quarter, that dealer can afford to sell those final units at or even below what appears to be break-even pricing on paper and still come out significantly ahead when the bonus check arrives. A dealer sitting on the edge of a $150,000 quarterly bonus does not need to make $3,000 on your car. They may not need to make anything at all. They just need the unit count. Your sale is worth more to them as a volume marker than it is as a front-end profit transaction. That is the opportunity most buyers never find because they do not know it exists. There is also something called dealer cash, which is a manufacturer-to-dealer incentive that is never advertised to the public. These are model-specific payments Toyota sends to dealers to help move slow inventory, clear outgoing model years, or push high-priority vehicles during specific sales windows. Dealer cash is separate from consumer rebates. It does not appear in Toyota's customer-facing incentive listings. The dealer does not have to disclose it, and they certainly do not volunteer it. It is real money sitting behind the transaction that can create room for deeper discounts than a buyer would ever know to ask for. The man standing in my shop that day had walked into a dealership with one number in mind, the sticker price. He had researched MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price. He had looked up what the car cost on a few websites. He felt prepared. And then he sat down across from a salesperson who had access to 4 separate layers of profitability that the websites never mentioned. Holdback, TDA, volume bonuses, dealer cash. The salesperson knew all 4. The buyer knew 0. That asymmetry is not an accident. It is the design. This is where the method comes in, not a trick, not a scam, a process, a repeatable, legitimate approach that informed buyers have been using for years to close deals on Toyota vehicles that most people never believe are possible. The first step is never walking into a dealership as the only buyer. This sounds obvious, but most people violate it every single time. They research one Toyota, they visit one dealership, they test drive the car, they fall in love with it, they negotiate a little, and they sign. The moment you show up at one store with the intention to buy that car from that dealer, you have handed away your most powerful leverage, your exit. The correct approach is to treat every Toyota dealership within a reasonable distance as a competitor, and not just 1 or 2, 5, 6, sometimes 8 dealers. Contact the internet sales department of each one by email or phone. Do not go in person yet. Do not test drive. Do not let any salesperson begin the emotional pull that ends with you sitting in the finance office. Simply communicate your exact vehicle specifications and ask for their best out-the-door price. Out the door. Those 3 words matter more than any other phrase in the car buying process. Not monthly payment, not price before fees, not just the vehicle cost. Out the door, the total number. The amount you write the check for. Dealers are masters at manipulating individual line items while keeping the total number opaque. A lower vehicle price with a higher documentation fee, dealer accessories, and inflated processing charges ends up costing more than a higher vehicle price with nothing added. The only number that matters is the complete total you will pay to drive that car home. Once you have quotes from multiple dealers, you have done something most buyers never do. You have created real competition. Competition changes everything. A Toyota dealer who thinks they are the only show in town will protect every dollar of margin they have. A Toyota dealer who knows you have a competitive quote sitting in your inbox from their nearest competitor behaves very differently. Here is where the timing strategy combines with the competition strategy to produce results that feel almost unreasonable to people who have never tried it. End of month, end of quarter. These are not myths. They are not hopeful negotiating folklore. They are structural realities tied directly to how Stairstep bonus programs work. A dealer who needs 3 more units to hit a tier threshold on the last 2 days of the month will price vehicles differently than that same dealer on the 5th of the month with 25 days of breathing room ahead of them. March, June, September, and December are quarter-end months. They are consistently the most aggressive pricing windows of the entire year. Toyota's fiscal year adds another layer to this, with additional incentive pressure building towards specific seasonal targets. If you can be flexible on timing and patient enough to wait for the right window, you are not just negotiating a car. You are catching a dealer at the exact moment when your unit count matters most to them. There is one more piece that almost no buyer ever uses. When you are getting quotes from multiple dealers and you have a competitive number, take that number back to your preferred dealer. Not to threaten, not to boast, simply to give them the opportunity to win your business. Dealers talk about competing for customers constantly. Most of them genuinely mean it. A specific competing number forces the conversation out of vague generalities and into real math. Most internet sales managers would rather win a deal at a thinner margin than lose it entirely. Your willingness to buy today at a specific price from a specific dealer is worth something to them. Use that. What the man in my shop had experienced was not unusual. It was standard. The system is built to extract maximum profit from buyers who approach the transaction as individuals going up against professionals. But the information I just gave you changes the math entirely. Because now you know what holdback is and why dealers can afford to sell below invoice and still profit. You know what TDA is and how it inflates the cost structure in certain regions. You know how Stairstep bonus programs work and why the last days of a quarter create pricing opportunities that cannot exist any other time. You know why out-the-door pricing is the only number that matters. And you know how to create real competition between dealers instead of sitting alone across the desk from someone who has every information advantage. None of this is illegal. None of it is even remotely unethical. It is informed buying. It is understanding the system you are walking into before you walk into it. Before I left the shop that afternoon, the man looked at me and asked one question. If I had known this before I went in, what do you think I could have saved? I did not guess. I told him the truth. On the vehicle he bought, in the market he was in, at the time of year he purchased, a prepared buyer using this approach could reasonably have walked out paying $2,000 to $4,000 less. Maybe more if the timing had been right. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said he had a friend who was about to buy the same model. That is the only reason videos like this exist. Not to make people angry at dealerships, not to pretend the system is broken. It is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. The question is simply whether it is working for you or against you, and now you know which side you want to be on. If this changed how you think about buying a Toyota, hit like so other buyers find it before they walk into that showroom uninformed. Subscribe if you want to keep getting the kind of information the industry counts on you never finding. And if you have ever used any of this to get a deal that surprised even the dealer, drop it in the comments. Because the most expensive car you will ever buy is not the one with the highest sticker price. It is the one where you were the only person at the table who did not understand the game.